Yeah, so Mike, thank you so much for being here. It is awesome to have you. And I think what you've already said is just really helpful. I'm going to repeat it because we missed it because we weren't recording. That thing that you said that when you were talking about how some days you just feel like you're just really flowing, and other days you feel like it's hard. It's just really hard work. And I don't
Yeah.
think a lot of times if someone's sort of aspiring to work in a creative field like that, I think we have this illusion or delusion that, it's just all like once you're there, it's just like it's so easy and you're just following your passion and it's just, um, it doesn't have those challenges to it. So it's actually really refreshing to hear that that's the case. Um, but it would be lovely to hear how you started as an artist, like how you worked out that this was the path you were going to take. What was the journey, and what was the thing that you were like something shifted and you're like, yes, this is actually me.
Well, I guess the funny thing is that sometimes it's still in question. I don't think that'll ever go away. I think sometimes I'll think maybe I should have done something else full time or taken a different direction. But I do try and do my thing. Like what works in the moment is the best thing for me. And if it's working and I'm happy, then I'll keep going with it until I'm not happy, and then I'll reassess and see what happens. Um, the reason I do all this is because it tends to make people happy. It always has made people happy. Um, from being in like primary school and drawing in front of other kids, they loved it. I didn't get many merits in any other class, but my art teacher seemed to appreciate what I did. So that was always like I think my teachers were the things that kept me sort of on this path, I guess. I had really good art teachers through primary school and high school, especially high school, that let me do my own thing and make a lot of mistakes and, you know, really, really push the limits of what should be allowed in school to get a passing grade. But I think by being able to test those boundaries and push that kind of stuff and be emotional with my artwork and put myself on a page, that was just like that's all it really took to keep me in this kind of line of work, and that's the same thing that keeps me doing this now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was there anything else that competed with going down this path? Was there another path that you were also considering?
I like it's interesting because it was never when I was at the first school I went to. I went to a public school, and it was all very clear then, like art was the way to go. And then I moved to a private school. My mum got a job there, so we could afford school fees there.
Mhm.
And then that's when it all kind of changed because I was surrounded by a different breed of people. I was surrounded by a different idea of success. I was surrounded by a lot more money in people's lives that didn't resonate with me. So I kind of questioned what I wanted.
Mm.
And then ultimately it was kind of good because it made me be like, I actually want to do this. I don't want the money side of things. And it was more of like a middle finger up to those people for falling into things that they didn't want to do. And I said, well, I'll make less money, but I'll be happy doing it. And that's always been my thing. So, yeah,
It's a very, very artistic thing to do, is to
it
believe
is.
that you can live on nothing.
It is, but it is worthwhile. If you like it, it really doesn't. I mean,
So
having
who
that.
feeds you? Are you still at home?
No, 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 no. I live with my girlfriend. We have a nice place. Like it's not huge, but it's nice. I got all the things I need, honestly. Like I wouldn't mind like a bigger garage or a really messy paint room, but apart from that, like there's no rush. Um, I think that's a good thing as well. Like if you know what you want a little bit, if you have goals for, you know, I don't know, a fancy car or whatever, you can sometimes choose a job that it gets you that fancy car faster, but once you get that fancy car and you're stuck with a job you don't like, is that car worth it? Is it going to keep you happy? So just a bit of perspective on that kind of stuff goes a long way.
Yeah.
But you can definitely make like very good money in this field. Um, it's definitely quite tricky now. I'm lucky; things are going smoothly for me. But I know a lot of my artist friends that have triple the amount of followers or quadruple the amount, or have been around for 10 years longer are having a really hard time. So, it is what it is, but they all still remain creative, and that's a massive part of it. Like, that's why we do what we do. We can still remain creative even when we're not making money. I guess unlike a lawyer who can't, spend their Saturday lawyering if they're not hired by someone, we can sit down and we can draw and we can get out our feelings or lack thereof, whatever it may be. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I loved what you said about sometimes you wonder whether this is the right thing for you, and maybe you could do something different, but what you tune into is what feels right to you in the moment, in the present, and you just check in there, and then if it feels right, you keep being there, you keep taking actions there. That is, I mean, if I could define what it means to follow a passion, it is literally just that. It's where you start figuring out what it is, like when you have that experience of flow, that's starting point. And then it's literally as simple as taking actions in that area where you feel that experience and noticing whether that brought you that same level of satisfaction or flow, or however you want to say it. If it does, keep going that path. If it doesn't, your path shifts a little bit, and your path will shift through life. If you're able to tune in, you just seem like this is something that you are just doing so naturally. It's awesome. It's an incredibly powerful way to live. And you're right, like the choice to not go down the path of doing a career that's like prestigious or that, will earn you a lot of money, which, I mean, what are they, like doctors, lawyers, maybe accountants or something? I don't know.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, it's so limited. So a lot of people think that these are the things that they should want to do or they should be doing, and then feel bad that they're not doing it because it's what our culture says is the thing to do.
Well, I guess my advice to those people is, like, I have friends that are accountants. I have friends that are in all kinds of different fields. I just had one accountant friend quit his accountancy job to get into clothing design because he likes sewing things and making his own bags and stuff. So he's just doing that now. But I guess the beautiful thing about those jobs is, like, you still have, 6 hours at the end of the day and weekends to also be creative if you want to be creative. Even if you do maybe pick the wrong career for a bit, that's fine. Like, you can still dip your toes into so many different outlets. There's a really awesome movie called Patterson, which is literally about a bus driver that writes poetry outside of work and writes on his lunch break and stuff. And there's no big moral to the story. It's just this guy is a bus driver and writes good poetry and is happy living that life. That's his fulfillment. And that's like, I would encourage anyone to watch that movie. It's got Adam Driver from Star Wars and all that good stuff, and he's a great actor. So, it is a good movie, but it is about little things. Definitely, when you are creative, you have to look at the little things, take the little wins, and also just take the losses and be okay with them, because they'll make something better at the end of the day, for sure.
Anyone, if you have thoughts, ideas, comments, questions, whatever, please have this be totally conversational.
Please do.
You don't need to raise your hand or anything. Just start speaking. Take yourself off mute if you are. But there was something you said there about the bus driver doing the poetry, that's a beautiful way to think about it. Like, if you're I'm a coach, kind of in my trainings in being a coach, and I often work with people who are in positions like I've got a client at the moment who's a CEO of a major bank, and he is like, it is just not him. It is just not his self-expression. But he's got this amazing job, right? It's like, it's got all the prestige, it's got all the money, he's been there for 10 years, so he's got all this momentum going, but he is just not happy. He does not like the work. And if you do the math, if we work 40 hours a week for, let's say, 50 weeks of the year for 40 years of our life, that's 80,000 hours of our time that's spent in the best hours of your day during the best years of your life. And if you go to work every day cringing and just feeling like it's soul sucking and saps your energy. Well, not everyone has access to this, but if you do, and I believe everyone in this Zoom room has access to this, if you have that experience, it is like your duty to change it somehow. And sometimes what you're talking about with the bus driver, maybe it's not like, it sounds like he was perfectly content with that.
Yeah.
If someone hates their work, the idea is to do like a side hustle, like a passion project, do something on the side that fulfills that for you. And if it is something where you don't like your work, well, then have that side project start to evolve and get to the point where one day it could be at the point where you could let the other one go and let this one take over. Like, absolutely. But what would you say to the people in the room who may not be going down like a creative path, or like an art path? Some may, some may not, but I think that the wisdom is kind of the same across the board. If they don't feel like they're 100% certain which way they want to go, and they've got all those, cultural and societal kind of bits of advice about what we should do, what everyone else is doing, blah, blah, blah. What would you say would be like a good kind of thought or mantra to have that will help? Was there anything that you had that kind of kept you staying on track with what felt right to you?
Yeah, definitely. So like it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. I mean, I had finished uni after doing my Bachelor of Design, and I didn't really do my Bachelor of Design. I was just kind of there. I definitely was just aiming for passes and just wanted to get through it. I didn't actually think about what was going to happen afterwards. So I spent many years just baristaing and doing odds and ends on the side, but I was never really serious about it. I thought it would just either maybe it would work out, or I just wasn't cut out for it. I actually didn't have very high expectations for myself. That's just a part of my life, that just part of my growing up. I just never had expectations. So, it took a while for me to actually catch on to what I want to do and what meant a lot to me. Yeah. And how I saw myself, in the mornings. But like, you kind of got to, even if it's the wrong thing for a while, that doesn't matter, because like the right thing you'll either want it enough that you'll make it your thing, or you'll just find, like, you honestly just will find a way. I mean, if I was still doing baristaing, I'd be using the money I made from that to fund projects for my art stuff. Like that's a way I would find a way to make that more of a positive. Even if I didn't like it, I would see how I can swing it to help my ultimate goal, I guess. And my partner right now, she works for an agency. She doesn't always love it, but it helps her. No, she does her design and it helps her fund her projects outside of that she loves. It's not always easy, but at the moment it's the best thing you can kind of do, and it keeps her hungry. It keeps you hungry for the next thing, for sure.
Absolutely. How's everyone else thinking about this? I'm going to go change my view to gallery view. Are there any questions? Anyone making them?
Yeah, I was going to ask Michael, do you think you were born with were you born feeling artistic? Were you born, like my grandfather was artistic, my father was artistic, so I'm naturally artistic, or I can mix colors, or I can do da-da-da-da-da. And not that I followed it as a pathway, but it certainly helped. Like, I can point back to, sort of a genetic link way back to art being important in our lives. So do you think it was that, or was it just that the kindergarten teacher who went, wow, Mike, what a great tree, or what a great, whatever you were drawing at the time?
Well, my parents are not creative whatsoever. My grandparents aren't creative whatsoever. My older brother and sister, nothing. My sister is way better at art than me. She's insanely good. So I don't know what happened with us. But I think I caught a bug, started drawing a lot. I had a big imagination, so I was just putting things on paper and enjoying it. And then my sister caught on to that, and it kind of became our identities through primary school and high school, because we weren't very good at the rest of the subjects. So we just sort of focused in on it a bit. And it led her to do architecture, and me down sort of more of I went to product design for a while. But there was no guarantees that was ever going to happen. We had no influences really. Like I think someone in our family was okay at painting. We had some paintings lying around, but they weren't inspiring to me. I still can't mix color. Like I still hate, trying to get the same shade of orange 3 times in a row when I'm painting. Like it's still a nightmare to me. So, I think you just adapt.
Pantone.
I think I don't want to get into Pantones. They have their own problems. But yeah, it's not on. I don't think it matters what the history is behind or in front of you, whether you have siblings that do it or parents that did it or didn't do it. I think it's just completely up to the person. If you want something enough, you'll always find a way to get it. You'll always find a way to work for it. And if you work hard for it, the right things will come your way 100% of the time. It might take longer, but for some than others, but it will always come, and in different ways. I always find that quite comforting as well. It's hard work. Mm-hmm.
What would you, if you had to point to sort of, I know this is it's a simple question, but it's a huge question at the same time. Like for someone who says that they're not sure what they want to do, that there are lots of kind of things that they're kind of pulled towards, and probably for all different reasons, some sort of genuine interest and some more kind of feeling pressured, or how would you say they could narrow that down? How could they chunk it down to the stuff that's actually just really them and not just all the extra external pressures?
Well, that is a tricky one.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I actually that happens to a lot of people around me still. It's a tricky thing to know what you want to do. And, in that sense, I do feel lucky because I know whatever career I'm doing is the right one I want to be doing. But my metric might be different to everyone else's. Mine is just when I go to sleep at night, do I feel good about the choice I made in the career that I'm in? Is it keeping me up? Is it making me second guess things? Does it match my personality, I guess, a little bit? Mm-hmm. The person I am in that career, I know I can thrive more because I'm an artist. I know my personality is bigger. I know I'm surrounded by more people that are of my style because of my art. I think all those kind of factors have to come into it, because you are, unfortunately, sometimes your career does surround you with a certain breed of person. I'm a stereotype in some ways, and I'm okay with that. But that is something I guess helps me measure things. Do I like the people around me? Is that reflective of what I'm doing? Yes, no, whatever. Can I sleep at night with my choice? Yes. Then it's like that. Yeah. It's a simple thing, but if I can sleep at night with the choices I've made, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. There's something that I've heard that's something about you've chosen correctly when you're spending your time, the amount of time you're spending, and the people you're with, and the work you're doing are all like they all feel right. So people that you like, you're doing work you love, and you're doing it as much as you want to. Because I think time is a huge factor in it, that experience of being able to spend your hours how you want to spend your hours.
Yeah, definitely. I think spending that's a massive thing. I guess on that point, then you can also say that it's okay to if you make a big mistake and you start the wrong thing, then that's okay, because you've just narrowed it down again for yourself. You're allowed to make as many mistakes as you want, honestly. I still make plenty constantly on a daily basis. Things that keep me up at night that shouldn't. There's small things where I'm like, oh man, I stuffed that up, or whatever. I could have done that better. But life's full of that kind of stuff, and those mistakes will push you in the right direction because they'll make you feel a certain way, and you got to, as long as you pay attention to those feelings, then I think you'll always know what you're doing is right or not. It's very hard to avoid that. I know in a monologue sometimes when it's telling you, no, I don't think this is right. I don't think this is right. I think what you've done is wrong. I think at some point you got to say, okay, maybe I got to relook at things, or confront something. So yeah, but don't be afraid of making the mistake. That's so fine. So fine.
Absolutely.
Do you
have questions?
Hey?
Oh, I was just saying, any other questions from anyone else?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you look up to street artists, or do you look to any particular genre as being inspirational? Like, is it a Banksy, or is it a social justice platform, or a hip hop, or a K-pop, or a? Like,
I think that's interesting.
Gets you stimulated? Or music, well,
definitely music. Music comes into it. Like, music is part of I guess, is in the way it's part of my personality. It's part of what comes out. But the music that I listen to has no association. I listen to almost exclusively like death metal music constantly. So I doesn't matter what mood I'm in, happy, sad, I'm vibing on heavy metal. So, and my work doesn't really reflect heavy metal at all. But it is part of that, I guess, contrast is a huge thing for me. I'm, more internal things that have been part of my upbringing, issues I've had and things like that. They manifest in one side, and then color comes out the other, because I want to put something more happy and vibrant into the world, rather than sit with those other things. So in that way, I think my art is very dependent on how I've grown up and the things I've gone through, because it's like sort of you put this all into a potion, like the start of the Powerpuff Girls, and then like something comes out, right? And then this is it. But I don't have specific street artists. I have friends that I admire because they work hard, but I don't have anyone I don't have anything directly that inspires me or anything like that. I just appreciate hardworking people around me and just latch onto that, and that fuels my fire. And anytime I think I'm in a good place, I look for someone that's doing better than me, and then I try to catch up to them and sort of keep going like that. But yeah, I mean,
because the work is, you had some experience at Disney, didn't you, or something in product design?
Yeah, I've worked with Disney. I've worked with, you name it, like all that kind of stuff. I love super old Felix the Cat. I guess that's probably the biggest one reference that comes into mind. He's like, when I love that. It's just kind of,
it's such a dude, that cat.
Yeah, he's great though. He's got there's so many good poses and things that I just felt like represented me. That's like kind of how it started. I used to do like heaps of really old school tattoo art. Like that was my whole thing. I have no tattoos, but I used to do so much tattoo art. And I still do tattoos for people and stuff like that, but I've none myself. So, it does change though. Like the way you want to do your art really does have to go through some cycles, and you're not going to find the perfect one the first time. And if you do, that's amazing. But that's part of the fun as well, definitely.
Yeah, I think, in a way, your art reminds me of a cartoonist, in that it's a commentary on something. I haven't looked at all your artwork to see whether there's a train of thought that runs all the way through it, but you could certainly see stylistically that it could quite easily be a cartoonist's, expression in a very, I suppose, fashion-oriented way, in that it's appealing to people to wear it, to say this is who I am, as part of that expression. So it's a little bit beyond the cartoonist. It's a little bit less two-dimensional, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think I do try to make myself as commercially viable in some way as possible. But it's like, actually, no, it has some influences of like doing design at uni. I love doing Bauhaus stuff, like super simple shape, color. Knowing when to stop on an artwork is super important for me. So even if something's simple, like I find that way more interesting than a super detailed artwork. I never like big dramatic paintings of landscapes or things like that. I mean, they're beautiful. I appreciate the effort, but it doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
So, you know, in that way, yeah, definitely. I do like the simplicity of a cartoon in the way that it's distilled down to some very basic elements. And I think you can communicate a lot of intent through things like that. And you can provide a lot of good commentary on things with friendly graphics, even if the intent behind it is more serious. So I think it is comfortable for people to see things like that because they are familiar with it. Mm-hmm. So in that way, yeah, definitely. But no, I don't know. I think maybe just subconsciously, cartoons is just where it ended up, or like older cartoons.
But when you look at, it's interesting that you talk about Bauhaus because that's architectural. So you obviously share something with your sister if she's ended up in architecture and you haven't, but you still refer to it as a, you know, a style that you like. And interestingly enough, I suppose, you know, Warhol or Herring or any of those sort of guys
definitely
could easily have been you. I mean, or you them.
I mean, that would be nice, but yeah, it's a bit different now.
Yeah, it is. But if you think about it, it would be interesting to see you not do the commercial, just to see what your art would be like if you were doing something that you wanted to do for you that wasn't commercial.
It would look exactly the same.
100%.
100%. There's nothing I put out that isn't 100% me or that I care about. I don't post anything that I don't like. I don't post things that aren't me. Like, and if I have done that, I'll understand why and I'll get rid of it. Like, even the more commercial stuff I do for clients, I say no to most jobs because it doesn't work with me and I don't want my artwork to be associated with something. Even if it doesn't have to, it's not even a bad thing. It just might be just something that isn't what I want. You know, and that goes for everything in my life, I guess. It's just, I can't fake it. And if I'm not staying true to what I'm doing, then I'm not going to sleep at night. You know, I'm not.
So let's go back to something that you just said right then, which was being true, being true to me. So this thing of being, you know, following a pathway and having a passion and a motivation is the fact that it sits in there and it actually is the driver. Like it is because you find it so true to you that you continue going down that path. Like it's almost like it's not that you're thinking about your brand, but it's exactly what Leah talks about with flow. It's when you get in that moment where it feels so right that you just can't separate the thinking as if I park it over here and I bring it back in and I do it this way and I da-da-da-da-da. It's just like, this is what I'm generating. This is me. Like it's me I'm giving. Yeah.
I think that's a very big metric. It's like, how much do you believe in what you're doing? That is I think a great way to know if you're doing is right. Yeah. I think like I have a name to it now. Like having Inkboy be a thing is super helpful because I can sort of ask myself, I can be like, you know, what would Inkboy do in this situation? Like, what does that creative persona represent, and what do I want to put out there? So you don't have to have a weird name like mine. I mean, my name came to be just because I like I like the words together. They look nice on the paper. And it just stuck. But, you know, like it does help a lot when you do have like a backlog of where you started and where you're going, to see how that's changed and to see what stayed consistent. And then yeah, and you can obviously see what it's okay to have things, you know, morph over time, but like there's always be some kind of level of consistency where you can be like, yeah, that was me all the way through, and I can see myself grow through that. So yeah, being true is hard, but it gets easier the longer you do it. I think. Yeah, for sure.
And there's something that you said too that was like, you said, I can't remember the context of it, but you said, you know, one of the things that's important to you is knowing when something's done.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Knowing when doesn't need any more. If you add more, it'll take away from it almost. And I think with one of the sort of ambiguous spaces around art and creativity, whether it's writing or, you know, anything creative, like even acting, you know, like what is too much? When do you know that it's at that perfect level when you know that it's done? That is such an incredibly interesting inquiry. And what feedback do you get that has, you know, it's done? Like, that's incredible. What's your experience with that?
I think part of the fun of that is that you don't know when it's done. You just kind of have to kind of ballpark it a little bit. Just a feeling. Sometimes it's just like adding one extra thing or taking away one extra thing, sitting on it for just like another hour, something like that. That's how you kind of can really dial it in. But you never know when it's done. And like, I might be really unhappy with something that took me ages to do, put it out there the next day, look at it and be like, that's a new metric for how I want things to look. You know, I'll be like, what did I do last time? So it's funny, like what you do it enough and the process becomes clear enough that you trust that it can look a certain or feel a certain way, and then it won't later on. Every time I do a painting, it looks like absolute garbage until the very end. Every single time I look at it and I'm like, this is done. This is crap. This is just the worst thing I've ever done. I finish it and I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever done. It's the most amazing thing the world's ever seen. No. But it is, you get to a point where you're just like, you know, you have to trust in your process, trusting in the process. And that doesn't just mean in the work that you're doing, that means in every other aspect of your life. You got to trust that all those kind of things are going to fall into place if you're thinking about them, if you're working towards them, then that's just what's going to happen. You know, with, you know, time. But yeah, definitely. This big processes.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Because this is, I mean, Mike's coming from a very creative in the sense of artistic expression, but creativity manifests in so many ways, in so many different vocations. Is it making you think about anything around your own purpose and what you are reaching for, and the inquiry? Is it paralleling?
I'd love to share something.
Yeah.
First of all, sorry I joined a bit late, so I missed
okay.
the introduction.
Thank you for coming.
But yeah, thanks so much, Michael, for sharing your experience and how art's been for you. I think it's so important. Like we're like conditioned, and because we're born into this world where the commercial success of things is so important, because you need that to survive. You need money to keep going, and that's like sort of a necessity. But then within that, if you can find something you love doing, because ultimately that's more important than just surviving, isn't it? You need to survive, but you want to enjoy your life to the fullest as well. If you're just surviving barely, then life is not as meaningful as it can be. So I'm so inspired by your perspective and like how your like high school journey, like how you weren't influenced by people around you, and that expectation you probably would have had as well. Like people would have expected you to be a certain way, but you chose your path. Um, I think a lot of people find that very challenging. It's great to see. Yeah.
That's a hard thing. I've done like a lot of talks with high school kids or younger kids as well about this kind of thing, because a lot of people, I don't think, are ever given the opportunity to be shown art or design as a career path. I think it's honestly like, especially in a lot of people's upbringings. I'm very lucky that my parents were very open to me taking that path, because it was something that made me happy. But I know a lot of people's parents aren't, and if you're not exposed to that kind of thing, how are you supposed to find it in a lot of ways? So I think, that just means that it doesn't have to be in your high school years or even your uni years. It can happen when you're, 40, 50 years old if you wanted to. Because, you'd have to sort of go with the cards you're dealt in a lot of ways in life. And until you're shown otherwise, you can't really adjust to it. So, it's important to be aware of that kind of thing. And I appreciate what you said. I was lucky that that art was something that was encouraged. They always said, what about try advertising or something? There's good money in advertising. And I was like, I don't know if I don't know if that's what I want to do, So there'll always be different factors that pull you different ways. But yeah, definitely, like, I don't know. Another thing I've realized is, I saved up for a long time to get the car I always wanted, and I got the car I always wanted, and I was like, what next? I didn't care after that. So and then it went straight back to work. So like, as much as there are a great amount of material things, I think it's way more important to have something that you can focus on the daily and make you happy on the daily basis. And if that thing can help you get the things you want outside of that, that's awesome. But if it doesn't, it's not that much of, I feel like, to me, it's not that much of a discrepancy. You're not missing out on that much. It's a little things. I enjoy the little things is a big mantra of mine, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
And I think, like, just from my perspective, like, art and culture, they're like two things that there's no boundaries. People can connect with art, with music, with it's that connection you have, which is beyond language in some ways. And like it breaks down all barriers. Like you can connect with people across the world, even people who have different interests, but can still connect on something very common.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. I think for anyone out there that, if that's important to them, having a career that allows every other person on the planet in any other career to appreciate is fantastic. And if someone can see your self-expression and be like, I like that, that's incredible. And thanks to, the blessing and curse that is social media, mostly a curse, but the blessing, of like that one person that messages you something lovely and goes like, this is great, blah, blah, blah. It is inspiring, it is such a cool thing, but it is a very good point. You can transcend all other sort of jobs and things by what you do. Because I can't look at an accountant and be like, love the number work you've done. Love that. That looks amazing. You carried the decimal point perfectly there. Like, I just don't know. I can't, because I don't know how accountancy works. But I love my accountant because, they help me with my taxes. But like, apart from that, yeah, it is a very unique position. And I think something very important to factor in that I actually have never thought about before. And I'm just going to write down next time I do a talk. It's very handy.
Yeah. I think even just like not being a profession or something that is your work, like it's great to have a hobby. Because I know that in the past I hadn't really picked up any creative hobbies. I was more just into like whatever was taught at high school and uni. But I recently started like doing newer things and trying just different forms of art. Like I've learned ukulele.
That's awesome.
I sing very badly, but
That's
just
awesome.
record myself and listen to myself. And I think
Amazing.
it gives you this expression which other things sometimes don't, and it gives you a way to connect with people all across, whether it's like you said, it transcends all differences and just makes you one with the person who's listening or with you.
Yeah, exactly. It
Find
only
that.
takes one other person, in my opinion, to make it all feel special as well. Like,
Yeah.
definitely always focus on things. You know, you always have to go to sleep with one person in your life, and that's yourself. So you always got to do things for that person. But it really only does take one or two others appreciating what you do to give you the confidence or the motivation to just kick things to the next level.
Mike, I remember you said that at the very beginning of your talk here. You know, you said that you got good feedback from your friends at school, and that it seemed to make people happy what you were doing. That somehow in the context of you doing this particular kind of work, there was this flexibility with like the rules, and you managed to get cross lines where it was acceptable. And that whole world of feeling like you can kind of flourish here, like you make people happy, you know, you connect with people, things expand. It's an expansive space for you in that world. That's huge. Like that's a really kind of powerful, not like powerful, but like self-empowered kind of, you know, place to be.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's incredible. I do I do still thank my VC art teacher. You know, she was the best. Miss Pennings let me get away with so much stuff, and by so much I mean doing none of the work and just doing whatever I wanted and whatever I presented. But I attest all that kind of stuff, all those kind of things that I was afforded, they came down to me being open with people. I know it's a hard thing to do, but when you open up yourself and you're honest and you're nice, it's the biggest difference. You know, if there's an evil version of me, that guy's nowhere near as close to doing what I'm doing now, because that's just the difference maker to me in so many ways, is being accepting of people, being open to people, listening to people, having people listen to you. And I think art for me, like maybe singing or playing ukulele, whatever it is, if you're communicating that outwards and that's a part of you that you're proud of, and you're being honest about it, you're going to attract more honest people and you're going to flourish just naturally. But be nice, just be nice. That's what I tell everyone, just be nice. It's not that hard, just do it. For sure.
Awesome. I love it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like with you and also your partner, like Carla, like I can just look, like I don't even have to see, like if I see a post in my Instagram feed, I don't even have to look at the name. Like I know exactly that it's your work or it's Carla's work. Like, how did you become so confident in like your style and like, not even just like the artistic sort of aesthetic sort of thing, but just like your whole, I feel like if I saw you like in the middle of a crowd, I could still be like, oh, that's Inkboy. You know what I mean? Like,
that's so nice.
How did you sort of build on that?
Oof. Okay, well, first of all, super nice thing to say. Secondly, I think it just takes time. You're always gonna have outside influences, you know, that are gonna start to inspire you, and I think it is, if you're being honest, you really have to be honest with what you want to put out there and what you want people to see you as. I don't want people to see me as not Inkboy. So like if I do something that goes against that in like just my day-to-day life, I'm like disappointed, because I'm like, that's not how the rest of the world would see you. Why would you do something like that, you know? But like, you know, I think finding a few different things that you can stick to really helps. For me, it might just be like, I don't know. That's actually tricky, but definitely like the eyes that I do, no matter what they go on, no matter what the subject is, it would be like the eyes plus maybe just the colors that are involved, or just like the subject matter. I think the more you do things, the more you involve them in your life, and the more that that gets presented, the more people will know you for those things. Yeah. So I don't know, just doing the things that, putting out the things that make you happy out there is probably my biggest thing. It's a big point for the night is if you include the things that make you happy in the work that you're doing, then people will know you for them, because they're getting the whole version of you, not holding anything back. But yeah, that's that. I think did I answer the question?
Yeah, like also just like another question to like move on, like move back to that, like how you said you would feel disappointed if you like did something that you felt that Inkboy wouldn't do. Like, do you ever feel constrained by that? Like, let's just say, like, I know you said you didn't like landscapes, let's say, like painting landscapes. What if you watched a really cool documentary and you were like, actually, I want to try this? Like, how would you sort of, like, do you have to resist doing stuff that's outside, like experimenting outside of Inkboy, or?
Yeah, that's tricky. That's a really hard one. And I think if Carla was here, I'd ask her to tell you that one, because her artwork is a bit different to mine in the fact that like she's got political driven stuff, she has environmental driven stuff, and she feels like
amazing.
I'll pass it on. She'll be stoked. But like that kind of stuff does make you, I guess for her, makes her feel like she's in a bit of a box, that if she goes away from having a standing up for something and puts art out there that doesn't include that, then she is not the person that people thought she was, and people just don't respond to it as well. And that is the case. And there's so many artworks I would love to put on my Instagram. They're so different to everything I do, but that's not what people unfortunately want. So you kind of have to say, all right, what's the percentage? Is my percentage of Inkboy style things outweighing the percentage of the other style things? Yes. Like there's been so many different directions I want to go, but it's been fleeting. It's been like a month or 2 months of going that style. And I just keep doing it on the side. And if it sticks longer and starts to overtake it, then I would bring it in. Yeah. But you'll always, throughout life in everything, your brain's always going to shift different directions slightly. Relationships, friends, like whatever it is, your brain is just, you're going to hit crossroads constantly. And that's part of the journey of it. So yeah, sometimes you feel stuck. Then sometimes you wake up the next day and you're just unstuck. You just go sleep it off. Sleep helps.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
That was an awesome question, and it created an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
We are right on time. And I just want to thank you so much, Mike, for coming tonight and giving us your time, sharing your experience and your wisdom. And you've touched on some amazing sort of aspects of what it actually means to follow a passion. And I mean, that whole kind of phrase almost sounds a little bit outdated, but it's still so worth kind of going for. I think what happened is that people kind of, it was always so sort of amorphous and intangible. No one knew how to relate to what that meant for them specifically and how to actually do it and what that means and what other people's experience of it are, that people just kind of almost feel resentful at the idea because they feel like it excludes them. They don't know how to do that. So, I hope that these conversations open up like a sense of what it is, and dispel the myths about it's always going to be like smooth sailing. And there are going to be highs and there are going to be lows, just like anything else. And it's not just like once you lock in what your passion is, it's just like onwards and upwards. And I think you've done that incredibly well for us. You just shared so beautifully from your life and your experience. So thank you so much for being here. It's just a gift for us to have you. So thank you.
Very wholesome, very, very nice things that you've said. I just hope that everyone, I don't know, it's never easy. It's not always going to be easy. I still find it difficult. And that's like, I think being okay with that is part of the journey. But if anyone, like, just as a side thing, if you want to have any questions after this, my Instagram is always open. So you can message me. If you haven't thought of anything now, you think of something later, even if it has nothing to do with art. I'm just happy to talk about things, and give some advice on that kind of side of things, get the ball rolling. Because it if I had someone like this back in the day, I would have been stoked.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So let me be that person if you need it. That's it, basically.
Nice one.
Yeah. But thank you, everyone, for coming.
Fantastic.
It was awesome.
So much. You're awesome.
Thank you so much, Mike.